Hi guys, and hello fellow Cambly tutors. My name is Daesha. I am also known as Teacher Daesha, and I am so excited to be here today to talk to you guys about 6 do's and don'ts that I try to remember that help me manage my energy and prevent burnout and also maintain my overall mental health. And I really hope you guys find it interesting and informative. I'm trying to keep in mind both Cambly and Cambly Kids tutors during this process to maybe help you manage your energy or even regain your energy if you just so happen to have it lost. And also stick around to the end for some comments from the community, from the Facebook group about this same topic. So let's get into it. Before we get into the 6 do's and don'ts, some tutors may be thinking, why are we discussing this? What possible threats to my mental energy could Cambly possibly have? And I answer that with a lot. Cambly does allow us the freedom to make our own schedule and be our own boss, but sometimes that freedom means scheduling a 14-hour day. And that can be overwhelming for anyone. So let's get into it, and I really hope you find this helpful again for both Cambly and Cambly Kids tutors. So the first one is a do. Do know your end game. And this is something that I've been trying to remember a lot. Know your end game so you can stay in the game. And basically that means know your reason why, and that can help you to get throughout the day. And when you know your reason why, that really gives me personally the motivation to keep going, to know that what I'm doing has a purpose. Because if you just think what you're doing has no purpose, that you're just doing it for the fun of it, then it can really get tiring very quick and it can get old very quickly. So I would just remember to know your end game, and that can help you to stay in the game and to stay tutoring on Cambly just a little bit longer. The second one is also a do. Do know your limits. Know what you will and won't do. And the reason I believe this is so important is basically because of modesty. When knowing your limitations means that you are a modest person, so you won't go beyond those. And if you do go beyond your limits, then that can at times make you feel like a failure if you don't meet your expectations, when the expectations aren't things that you can reasonably meet. So for me, that it just makes sense to know your limits. And the limits with Cambly can just simply mean I cannot teach more than X amount of classes per day, or X amount of classes before I get a break, or I cannot teach more than X amount of hours. I cannot teach at this time or on this day. For me personally, I cannot teach on Sundays because I set that time for more important things. So, what are your limits? What are your limitations? What will you do and what will you not do for yourself, for your schedule, for your students? So, know your limitations and stick to them, which leads me to the third one, which is a don't. Don't be afraid to say no. I'm personally going through something right now with one of my students because I forgot about daylight saving times over here in the United States, and that affected my time schedule. So trying to be a nice tutor, I said that I'm willing to have the class at their normal time, which is an hour earlier for me, but that hour earlier is 4 a.m. I love the student, I really do, and I appreciate them for being willing to work with me for different things with my schedule. But if I can't handle the 4 a.m. time, then I'm going to have to be firm and say, no, I can't do it. Can we have the time at a later time? Can we have our class at a later time? And I am a bit afraid to say no because I do love the student. So I love the student very much. I love the parents very much. It is a Cambly Kids student, but I don't want to put my health before the hustle, because if I'm not a healthy teacher, I'm not a good teacher. So that's something that I personally have to remind myself, to not be afraid to say no, to not go beyond my limits, even if it is for a favorite student. I still need to know my limitations, where I will stand and where I won't stand. So this brings me to my fourth point, which is a don't. Don't book back to back. Now, the reason this is a don't is because of me personally. I know my limitations, and I'm not able to handle booking so many classes back to back. Right now, I can handle 3 classes being booked back to back. And the reason this is a don't is just because we're all imperfect. This includes our students as well. So sometimes the students may be a bit late. And when the first student is a bit late, then that impacts the schedule for the rest of the day. So for me, this helps me to prevent burnout, because if I try to have so many classes booked back to back, then I'm stressing myself mentally, especially if it's a Cambly Kids student that I'm teaching, and I'm mentally just trying to cramp all the information into one 30-minute session and trying to make sure I cover all the slides, make sure they're getting all the points. So it can be very frustrating and very nerve-wracking trying to cram that in and make sure you get on time to the other students. So I think it's pretty self-explanatory why I personally recommend not booking back to back. It really helps you to conserve your mental energy and not stressing out over missing the main points of the lesson or just missing a lesson in general because you can't make it to the next student in time. But sometimes you might be able to make it to the next student. It just depends on how you prepare for your lessons, which brings me to the fifth point: do prepare. So this doesn't always mean preparing for the lesson per se. Like, it does help when you can prepare for a lesson, especially with Cambly Kids, or if you're teaching an adult student, just knowing ahead of time what you're going to talk about, what the topic of conversation will be, so you can get into the mental space of things, not having to jump from your personal life and trying to think of what you're going to say. But even just preparing your mental energy or preparing your mindsets from going from a Cambly Kid student to a regular Cambly or an adult Cambly student. Or not even that, maybe one student has very high energy, so maybe you don't need to be as energetic, or maybe you do to match their energy, or vice versa. Yes, you do want to prepare your energy, prepare your lessons, make sure you know the information beforehand, but don't prepare your energy where you're transforming yourself or transforming your energy, which brings me to my sixth point, which is don't change. Okay, this is something that I personally had to learn as I grew as a tutor, to not change my personality. When I first started, especially when teaching kids and looking at other tutors in the community, I would see that their energy is a bit more hyped than mine, or I felt like it was putting on a show. Maybe that was their personality. Maybe that's how they're able to communicate with the kids. But for me personally, that was very tiring, and it just wasn't me. I feel like I was putting on a show and performing for the students instead of teaching them. And I had to learn that if I wanted to continue and to have a sustainable tutoring business or tutoring career, that I needed to stay true to myself, stay true to my personality, and only then will I be able to continue to provide a quality lesson for my students. So does this mean that I was just acting like I just woke up and just got out of bed? No, it doesn't. I mean, I do understand that, especially for kids, that I want to wake up and be a bit more energetic, but not to the point where I feel like I am a different person. And doing this, not changing your personality, actually, to me, increases your joy in tutoring, because you're able to find students who like you for your personality. If you are a different person while you're teaching, and you have to stay that different person while you're teaching a student because that's why they booked you and that's why they became a regular student, then you're not going to enjoy teaching them. When they book you, you're going to want to hope they cancel because you don't feel like putting on the act, or at least I personally don't. Don't change. Stay true to yourself. Be your unique, wonderful self. Okay, so thank you for listening to my thoughts on that subject. So now let's hear some of your thoughts. So here are some comments from the community, from the Facebook community for Cambly Tutors, talking about managing energy. Kat D says, I do a mental check in the night before to see if I need to adjust any unhooked priority hours before the 12-hour deadline. I've been teaching online for over 5 years now. So generally I have figured out what my ideal schedule looks like, but the daily check-ins help with figuring out what my schedule looks like in a more immediate sense. I also like to check in with myself between calls to make sure I am using my breaks and not overlooking my needs. And Kat, I really do agree with you, especially with me personally, since Cambly is a side hustle for me. That also means that I have other family responsibilities and other secular responsibilities. So trying to look at it or go at my schedule on a weekly basis, checking in from day to day just to see how my family schedule is and how my mindset is for the next class. So I really agree with you. Corey L says, I control my energy by treating each call differently. Some calls need more eye contact and hand gestures. Some a relaxed smile, yet others like sipping tea with you. By being flexible, I use different levels of energy, which keep me excited and ready for the next challenge. Again, Corey L, it sounds like we are on the same wavelengths, because that reminds me of what I just said earlier. So sometimes you just have to match the energy of the student. Some students, I feel more like a teacher, a tutor, but other students, I have like this one adult student, and when we talk, I just feel like I'm sipping tea with a friend. So the next comment from the community is from Natty Lee C, which says, we have seriously strong coffee and an energy drink called Score. I plan my days so I know when I am working for Cambly, and I make sure I am fed, watered, and ready for action. The little self-care ritual that you have there, I love it. And I really enjoyed this comment because I do something similar every now and then when I just feel like I'm going to need a bit more energy in the morning. So I personally can't drink coffee, or I can drink coffee, but it just doesn't give me any energy. So I wanted to share this with you tutors. Okay, so listen closely. If you get this hibiscus tea and this green tea and boil them together, brew them at the same time together, and add a little honey in it. I personally like to set it in the refrigerator overnight and drink it in the morning for a cool, refreshing drink right before classes. It works for me. And again, maybe tea doesn't work for you, maybe you need the coffee, but I just wanted to share that for the tea loving tutors out there. So before you watch another video, please take a brief moment to visit the comment section to share what helps you to maintain your mental energy and to help you have a sustainable tutoring business with Cambly. I would love to read it in the comments below. Thank you so much for staying until the end to hear my 2 cents about this very important topic. And I really appreciate having the invite to join in on this important conversation, and also on the Cambly Tutors page. I really do appreciate it. Stay tuned for more helpful videos on how you can succeed at Cambly and teaching by subscribing and hitting that notification bell. And if you like this video, the like button. See you. Thank you. Here's the recipe for that tea I mentioned earlier. So what you do is grab the 2 teas. That's all you really need, but I will also add honey and vinegar. Now bring your water to a boil, let it sit for 10 minutes. Now add your honey and vinegar if you're using it in your 2 tea bags, steep for 5 minutes, and enjoy.